Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group, and we have a very important webinar for you today to help you understand and learn about the HCS waiver and some of the communities that provide services, provide residential experiences and residential communities for your loved ones. I am with Consolidated Planning Group. I have just a few things to go over before we really get started. I want to let you know, first of all, that we always record our webinars. And later on today, you will receive a link to that recording. Plus, you will receive the slides that we have for you. So you're going to get all of the contact information for each one of our speakers today later on in your email. So look forward to that as well, as long as you registered with your real email address, that is. We are in webinar mode, so that means that we can't hear you or see you, but I do see the number of participants out there. So I know you're out there. You can feel free to enjoy your lunch or snacks or drinks or whatever. We can't see you anyway. But if you have any questions or comments, we would love for you to put those in the chat box. We're going to answer a lot of questions today. If you want to start getting your questions in the chat box now, that is totally fine. As we listen to each speaker, we'll be able to ask them questions. We'll be able to ask the entire group questions. This is kind of a new way to run a webinar for us. So we're going to do it a little bit like we do our residential panels, where we hear from each speaker and learn what they have to offer. But we're also going to be answering your questions about the HCS waiver as we go through. So again, you will receive this webinar later on in your email. I'm Michelle Morris. I'm with Consolidated Planning Group. We host these webinars because we are a financial planning firm. We take a holistic approach to helping families with their finances. We've been doing this for over 30 years, and we're located just outside of Houston in the Sugar Land area, and we work all across the United States. Now, the HCS waiver is here in Texas. This is specifically a talk related to Texas services. So if you're in a different state, please feel free to reach out to us, and we would be more than happy to tell you about the waiver programs in your state. But today we're going to focus on Texas. So, as I said, we are financial advisors, but we work mainly with families who have a loved one that they care for that has any kind of intellectual or developmental disability. And this is not just a small portion of the clients we work with. This isn't something that we do on the side. This is what we do 100% of the time. Well, I mean, probably about 95% of the clients that we work with do have a loved one. And not only that, but we actually have loved ones. The owner of our company has 2 disabled children in her life. So we truly live and breathe this. We are members of the College of Planning Academy. Geez, I can't get my words out. We're National Social Security advisors, and I just got my Chartered Special Needs Consultant certification from the American College of Financial Advisors. So I'm glad everybody can hear, except unfortunately, maybe not Erica. Maybe your internet is a little bit weak or something, but you'll receive this and the link. You can watch it again later if you can't hear us. So families come to us at Consolidated Planning Group specifically to help with special needs planning. We do lifetime care planning, thinking about the cost of care in the future for your loved ones. We talk about protecting your family against the unforeseen circumstances that could arise. Transition planning for when your loved one turns 18 and the legal and financial aspects of that, or when they graduate from high school, the transition that occurs there into the real world. Today, we're going to be really focusing on learning about the HCS waiver and some different residential opportunities involved there. We do ABLE accounts and benefit planning, SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, Medicare. And we're here to advocate for your family and to educate you on what needs to be done to plan for your family's future. There are, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, over 263,000 financial advisors across the United States. And out of those 263,000 financial advisors, fewer than 200 of them focus on special needs planning the way that we do. That's less than 0.1% of all the financial advisors across the United States that focus on special needs planning. So you are definitely in the right space when you come and talk to us. So we know that it keeps you awake at night thinking about who will take care of your loved one when you no longer can. And I want you to remember that the time to start planning is right now. It doesn't matter how old your child is or your loved one. Plan now. You will be able to sleep better at night. You're going to be able to make better, more thoughtful decisions that are unhurried and well-researched, rather than, oh my gosh, we need an answer right this minute. You're going to be able to make a bigger impact with smaller changes if you have more time to plan. And you're going to have time to get on important waiting lists and things like that. When you look at the educational opportunities, vocational opportunities, and residential opportunities for your loved one, there could be waiting lists. There are a lot of options out there for you to look into and find the right spot. We would hate for you to find just the right spot and then, oh, there's a really long wait list, so now you have to wait. We also want you to make sure that you think really carefully before you just assume that a sibling is going to be able or willing to step into the role of caregiver. I mean, that would be an ideal solution for every family. If it were really that easy, everybody would do it, but it's not, because, not only could the sibling who will be stepping into the role of caregiver, that person might have their own family, their own careers, their own social lives, and maybe not have the time or desire or means to take care of their loved one. And it becomes a feeling of an obligation rather than that loving relationship you want a sibling to have. On the other hand, the child who is being taken care of, your individual with a disability, they might feel like resentful because their sibling is stepping into more of a parental role. And, you're my sister. You're not supposed to be acting like mom. You can't control me. You can see how that could breed some resentment in their relationship. So just be very careful when you are just assuming that a sibling would be able to or willing to take over the role of caregiver. Okay, so we are here to talk about these great options. As you have questions as we go through, please, please, please utilize the chat box. We want to get to as many of your questions and comments as we possibly can. But first, let's talk with Wendy Yates, the owner of Aim High Home and Community Services. Wendy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and how you can help the families that are here today?
Hello, I'm Wendy. I am the owner of Aim High HCS. We have HCS and Texas Home Living Services. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. We can hear you great. Thank you, Wendy.
I'm known to talk softly, so I wanted to make sure. I also currently own 3 ICF homes, which are all 6-bed. And basically, I just started as a direct care staff when I was in college and fell in love with this field. And here I am today, many years later. You're absolutely right, Michelle, what you said about planning. It's so important. If you don't plan early, you're going to get to a point and, whether that's graduation and now what. And Texas does have very, very lengthy wait list. And so if you wait till high school graduation, you're going to be waiting probably a couple more decades.
Mhm.
So I always tell my people, Texas does not do a great job educating, probably because our wait list is already so long, but I always try to get into schools or elementary schools and teach, educate the families there because they don't know often. I just real quick, kind of just to go over and pass it on to the other panelists, what Texas offers a lot of services, but before we get into those, kind of want to give you a little overview. The ICF homes, usually those are 6-bed, they may be 10-bed, 14-bed, 56-bed, they can be 100,
Wow.
They can, as long as they're licensed at that. There are no new ICFs anymore. They stopped selling the ICF license in the 90s. Or not selling, giving them. So now you have to buy an HCS license if you want in that business. But basically for ICF, if you meet the criteria, which is diagnosis before age 18 of IDD, and you have the Medicaid eligibility, which is the IDD based on, you get the Medicaid based on the disability, not income. In ICF, if you have, thank you, intermediate care facility. If you have those two things and you find a place that has an empty bed and you work that out with that place, there's no wait list, you can get in. Some ICFs do have wait list, but you don't necessarily, you go through your local authority and you figure out who has beds for ICF. There's also programs, I'm going to throw this one out too. There's one, it's called CLASS, CLASS. I don't know what all those stand for, but they offer a lot of times.
Community living and social services, or community living assistance, or
Something like
something
that.
like that.
I don't operate a CLASS license, so I don't know, but I have had many people transfer in that had CLASS, and it really serves a purpose a lot of times when your kiddo's younger, because they offer a lot of therapies and those type of services. What I do, my two programs I have, and are there Texas Home Living, which is a stepping stone, we call it, to HCS. So you get on a waiting list through your local authority, and you tell them you want to be on all these waiting lists, and they get you signed up and get you tested and everything. And so then when you get Texas Home Living, you get services, but the only thing is you get one type of residential, but you get the dental, you get ISS, day hab, some of those services, and you can be on the waiting list for HCS while you're getting Texas Home Living services. I think there is about a 8-year waiting list, maybe, for Texas Home Living, 8 to 10. And then HCS is about a 18 to 22 year waiting list.
Yeah.
I listened yesterday to the HHSC, and I don't think their information was accurate because they didn't say it was that long. But with HCS, that's the Cadillac of services. Once you're in, you're in. And yes, correct. I see in the chat, Texas Home Living is not temporary. You can be in that while you're still waiting on HCS. But when you get into HCS, that's just the Cadillac of services. It offers the dental, the speech, the PT, OT, behavioral. And then the best thing with that too, I think, is it gives you a choice in your residential. So you can choose from a group home, which is 3 or 4 bed group home, or host home. And the family, the parents, a family member, a church member, a close friend, they can be that host home. Or you can have somebody come in, which is a community attendant CFC, transportation, all these initials that we throw at you. But those people I've used throughout the years, from anything from teaching how to ride a bike to learning how to drive a car. They can learn how to get a job. It's so based on the individual's needs. And so that's kind of why I think HCS is probably the Cadillac, because it offers the array of services. You wait a long time to get it, but once you get it, you're in, and it's a great program. So that's kind of my short overview of those programs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Wendy. Now, it says that you're in Grand Prairie, Texas. How far do you work? How far do you reach out from Grand Prairie?
We're all over. I serve a few clients in the Houston area. We're basically kind of the Grand Prairie, Arlington, Mansfield hub, but we're in Fort Worth, Burleson, South Lake. We're east, Seagoville. So just really Tarrant County, Dallas County, or anything that touches those counties.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Wendy. And again, if you have any questions for Wendy, you can reach out to her personally with her contact information, or you can ask in the chat. And let's switch over to Jason now. Jason with Berry Family Services. You're also the president of the PPAP, so he'll tell us a little bit about that. Go ahead, Jason.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Jason Berry, CEO and one of the owners of Berry Family Services. I'll talk about PPAT first. It sounds weird, but that's just the acronym. It stands for Private Providers Association of Texas. And I believe the association represents around 85 private providers of HCS, Texas Home Living, ICF. I think there are some class providers in there as well. And what PPAT does is, well, we do a lot. We advocate for providers, advocate for individuals, and kind of our approach is, what's best for the individuals being served. That's what we need to work towards as providers. So, so there are a lot of legislative activities. There's a lot of activities with HHSC. Carol Smith is the executive director, and she has been doing this, I think, close to 50 years.
Maybe she said yesterday, 49.
49.
Wow.
Okay, so 49 years. She started out, I think, direct care, working in a state-supported living center, and I believe in 92 is when PPAT was founded, and she was the executive director since then. So PPAT is a great resource for providers. And she does a lot of help for families of her members as well. So she works about 26 hours a day. It's insane the amount of time and effort she puts into helping this industry and the individuals served. Berry Family Services, just a really brief history. My mother was a special needs teacher in DISD and in Mesquite ISD. Was so fed up with how it worked, and she still wanted to work in the population. So she worked for, at the time, Dallas County MHMR, which is now, is it MetroCare Services or Dallas MetroCare? It's MetroCare something or another, but it's a local authority. And then she went to work for another provider, and I was in junior high and high school at that time. So in 2004, we decided that, we just felt like, my mom felt like we could do it better. And no offense, there are a lot of great providers out there. I don't think we're the best, but, well, I think we're the best, but there are others anyway. She just thought she could do it. Our philosophy was different, a little bit different. And so we started our own company in April of 2004. And all we did was GR, and then we general revenue services through Dallas MetroCare. It's not a waiver service. I think most local authorities offer something in this realm, but I'm not sure completely. But our service area is the entire state of Texas, but we are primarily in the North Texas area. That our office is in Rowlett, but and that's just east of Dallas, probably about 25 miles east of downtown Dallas. So it all runs together. But yeah, we're primarily host home. I mean, we don't get to choose what our individuals receive in services from HCS or Texas Home Living, but we do have the majority of them under host home. We operate 7 4-bed group homes in the Garland Rowlett area. So yeah, Wendy did a great job explaining the programs. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I can add any more to it than what she.
Oh, absolutely, you can. I've got a question for you, Jason. Does the PPAT, do they help families find the right, like your company versus Lisa or Wendy's services? Do they help kind of vet these host homes and tell parents, what a good fit might be? How can the PPAT help parents, or do they not?
They help a lot of families, but it's generally like individuals that have chosen Berry Family Services or Aim High or community housing for adults, Down Home Ranch. I mean, we will call and say, hey, this individual's having Medicaid eligibility issues or any number of issues, and PPAT helps with that. There are people, I'm sure, that call with questions, and if you know Carol at all, she'll do everything she can to help. Now, we have talked about in years past, really before COVID, we had talked about maybe considering opening an association associated with PPAT for families specifically. But COVID really just kind of put a halt on a lot of things, and then just all the changes within the industry that we've been dealing with as providers, and things that are coming up that we're dealing with. Just the bandwidth would be just too much right now. But at our conference next week, I think we're going to be talking about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
great.
it's definitely something that we would love to be able to do. We just need to, we want to do it the right way. And if we're going to do something like that, we want to make sure that it's beneficial and we can serve the way we need to.
Right. I think at least knowing, who has openings and who has a wait list. I mean, just even that much information would be so helpful to consolidate for families.
I will add for HCS, and I believe for Texas Home Living, I cannot speak for ICF. It's a 0 rejection policy. So if somebody wants to pick Berry Family Services, they get to pick Berry Family Services. But I will say that direct care staff right now, I mean, there's a nationwide shortage with direct care staff, and Texas does not fund the program very well. That's what we are probably primarily going to be talking about at the conference as a whole, or at least part of it is, legislative efforts to get some of these issues addressed. So it is very difficult for providers to find staff, keep staff, to ensure the health and safety of the individuals. But we did sign up to do the job, so that's what we try to do. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason.
Sure.
We're going to come back to you, but for right now, we're going to go to the next speaker. Before we do, we've seen a lot of questions in the chat box asking, how do I find out where we are on the list? I put my child on the list a long time ago, or I put my child on the list last year. How do we find out? You can call your local authority, your LIDDA, and you can ask them, Or you can go online to yourtexasbenefits.com, and I'm putting that in the chat box right now, yourtexasbenefits.com. Create an account and go to manage services or manage my lists or something like that. And you can look to see what waiting lists you are on and where you are on that list. Okay, so that answers that question. Lisa, would you please tell us a little bit about CHI?
Sure, it's pronounced HI, and it's Community Homes
Hi.
for Adults. Thank you very much. And I just want to take a second to commend everyone on this call for hopefully, just trying to educate yourselves about this very complicated system that the state of Texas has us all involved in caring for our most vulnerable. And I think education is power. And I say that because there's a day does not go by where I'm sure all of us, the providers on this call, don't get a call from it in a crisis situation where there hasn't been a whole lot of planning in a family, and the parent passes away, has been taking care of their son or daughter for 50, 60 years, and the siblings or the people around them are in total crisis mode. What are they going to do? Or if a mother or father has to go to a nursing home, what are they going to do with their brother, Johnny? So these things happen all the time. So I commend all of you for really taking the time to plan out your loved one's future. My name is Lisa Brodsky. I'm the CEO of Community Homes for Adults. We're located in Dallas, Texas. We've been a provider for 41 years. Currently, we have 9 group homes and 31 individuals. Unfortunately, at this point, we don't have a vacancy, so I apologize for that. We also provide Texas Home Living Services. We are very much a part of our community. We also offer individual skills and socialization, which is ISS. They just renamed it. It used to be called DayHab. So we provide a day program. Right now, it's just for our residents from 9 to 2 every weekday. I think that what we really pride ourselves on is really getting our folks out in the community, being very involved in the religious community, the non-religious community, having a lot of volunteers coming to play bingo and basketball and taking them bowling, and just really our mission is really to provide a meaningful life for that person. We take folks that are 18 to 118. And since we've been around for so long, a lot of our residents have been with us for 35, 38 years. So they're growing old as well. One thing I just want to mention, and Jason, as the president of PPAT, is on the front lines of this. And that is, there is a workforce crisis, a shortage of workforce, direct care staff in HCS right now. And I'm the one who put in the chat box that the lawmakers have decided to pay us $10.60 an hour for our direct care staff. And our direct care staff are passing meds, they're preparing meals, they're cleaning the house, they're helping the residents with hygiene, we're taking them to their doctor's appointments, they're taking them to their social appointments, they're doing all these things. And I know many of us, I can't vouch for every provider, but I'm assuming that most of the providers on this call pay more than the 1060 because we couldn't really be able to get qualified folks to work in our group homes. And I say all this because I really hope that our legislatures, our lawmakers are meeting beginning in January. And they're also the ones that dictate how many people receive their HCS slot. I call it a golden ticket every year. So to give you an example, when I came 11 years ago, the lawmakers decided that they would give out 5,000 of these slots, these Medicaid waiver slots, this golden ticket for the next 2 years for the entire state of Texas. Well, last year, y'all on the phone, on the call, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was 1,200 slots for 2 years for the entire state of Texas. That's why the wait list is so long. I came, it was 8 or 9 years. Now it's, I think Tracy said, or, yeah, it's or Amy said it's 18 to 20 years. So why I tell you all this is because I think it's really important for you to have your hand on the pulse of what's going on in your community, and get to know your representatives. And you all are the best advocates for your loved one, because I go to Austin every 2 years and bang my head on the wall and run up and down the corridors, shouting from the rafters how important our people are. And I'm very committed to it, but I think the families have even a better story than I do. So I think it's going to take all of us to really advocate on behalf of the folks that we serve, because there's a lot of providers that have gone out of business because they cannot afford to take care of their folks. We're fortunate, we're a nonprofit, so we're able to raise some funds to help pay our staff more. So I'm finished on my soapbox, but thank y'all very much.
Well, it's very important that we all advocate for our loved ones. There are so many rules and regulations that just blow my mind when I have to tell people that their child can only have $2,000 in the bank account, or their child will receive $943 unless they're married to somebody who also has a disability. Then they don't get that much. They only get a portion of that. Or the fact that their children cannot get SSDI benefits later in life if they're married. Things like this just really, I don't get it, but that's why we're here, to help educate and advocate for you. Okay, so thank you so much, Lisa. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm good. I'd be happy. I know there's tons of questions in the chat. I know you're going to open it up at the end, I believe. Be happy, all of us,
So
I'm
what
sure.
I've been doing while I want each panelist to have a chance to speak freely and to talk about their group and whatever they want to talk about. And then I am collecting, there's kind of themes going on in the questions being asked in the chat box. So I am collecting those themes, and I'm going to bring that out after everybody has a chance to talk. So Casey, if you wouldn't mind, please tell us about you and about Down Home Ranch and about what is available out there in Elgin.
Yes, so as mentioned, we are in Elgin, Texas, which is a little outside of Austin. Excuse me. We are a HCS, ICF, and private pay provider. We do not have Texas Home Living here. Probably ICF is our biggest. We also do ISS, what used to be called day program. And then we have a summer camp program as well. And respite. We do respite. So kind of a variety of things. We are a community-based program. So we have about 400 acres that the predominant housing is on. Our HCS houses, that supervised living houses, are off-site in the community of Elgin and Manor, and then they come for day programming or ISS during the day and do weekend activities and those sorts of things. Our ICF is on site as well as our private pay. I feel like everyone already gave really good information. The one thing I did notice in the chat that someone mentioned, and I didn't respond fast enough, but they asked about being a host home provider and if it was worth it, if you were on HCS already and it was kind of your short-term plan. And I would say that there wouldn't be any issue with that. And the nice thing about HCS that's different from some of the other programs, and again, I can't speak to Texas Home Living because I know very little about it, but in kind of comparison to ICF, is that it is very driven by the consumer, the individual that has that slot. And so whatever is provided through the program, you have a meeting each year with a person called a service coordinator who works for the local authority. Not to get too far in the weeds there, and you will pick those services that work best for, your family member, or ideally they are picking for themselves if they have the capacity to do that. And so if you start in host home now, while your child is younger, and then a few years down the road, they're ready maybe for a little bit more independence out of the house. They want to live in the group home style, or they want to live in their own apartment and just have someone come and help them out a few times during the day. You can switch that through that plan, and HCS covers all of those things. So you're not tied into the one thing. You know, if you pick something at the start and say host home works for me right now, and I'm going to keep them at my house, that does not tie you in forever. You can change that at any time through your service coordinator. As everyone else has mentioned, of course, staffing is a crisis. And so the provider might have to work with you to figure out what that's going to look like and how to get them moved over, or maybe if it makes more sense for you to move to a new provider, which you can also choose to do at any time with HCS, because that is your slot and you can take it where you choose to go with it. So that is the really nice thing about the program, is that it's in theory, funding being the issue, but in theory it's very fluid with what your needs are as you age and change. Another thing that I saw that someone mentioned was, well, what if they don't want to do something like day program, what's now called ISS? Well, they lose their slot. And again, the nice thing about HCS is it's kind of tailored to your needs. And so you don't have to use everything that's available to you. You have to be using at least, I want to say it's just one, someone else could correct me, at least a couple, something on the IPC. You have to be using the program in some capacity, but it could just be that one thing or two things. It doesn't have to be everything under the sun. You don't have to have day programming or therapies or any of those other things that are on there if you don't choose them. So yeah, that's, I guess, kind of my addition. I think everyone
Thank
else
you
covered everything
so
really well.
much.
So
Perfect. Thank you so much, Casey. Do you want to speak a little bit to this question? You know, since there is such a lack of help out there and finding people to come out and act as caregivers, somebody in the chat box asked about subsidizing the caregiver's pay. Like, can a family offer more pay to a caregiver so that they would be more likely to get somebody rather than someone down the street who is just using the, you know, the other rate? Is that allowable?
So I know in consumer directed services, like the individual can help set the pay, and Jason or someone else might know a little bit more about this than me. I would say it's definitely a gray area. I know that you cannot pay the provider for something that should be covered on the IPC. So I'll give an example of this to kind of, just because it's happened to us. So we had, again, as I mentioned, we have 400-acre community program and then also houses offsite. For a very long time, the language of HCS, and again, not to get too far, but wouldn't allow us to provide HCS services on site. We had an individual whose number came up. He was in our ICF. He moved into HCS, but he was living in a one-person home on our property. And the way that his family decided to do that was they thought, well, we will just use HCS for nursing and dental and day program, and we'll just pay privately for him to live in this one-person home on this place that they thought didn't qualify for HCS. And then when we had an audit, they said, no, actually, like there's a residential option that fits him. He should be using that for the IPC rather than like paying privately for it. And so he received that funding back and was able to go through HCS. So all that to say, you cannot pay a provider for something that the IPC should cover. How that gets into staffing, I don't know if someone else wants to jump in. I will say, if they're a nonprofit, I guess the best way you could potentially help was to donate to the nonprofit, but also knowing that you probably are going to need to have some sort of language that says you understand that you're not required to do that. You could stop your donation at any time and it wouldn't affect your place. So there's definitely a lot of gray area there that I would say be careful with, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't help in some capacity.
Well, and let's just put it out there for a moment, how far kindness goes. I mean, if you have a provider, you have a caregiver coming to your home and you ignore them and, yeah, here's my kid, go for it, do whatever. That's one situation. That's one way to do it. And that's certainly whatever. If you have someone into your home and you are gracious and kind, and would you like some refreshments as you work with my child? What can I do to help? Here, hey, here's some chocolate. Have a great day. You know, they're going to be much more willing and able and ready to come back to you versus someone who's like in a grumpy butt mood all the time or whatever. So things to think about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I did see someone just popped up that asked, what level of care does Down Home Ranch provide? I'm not 100% sure I'm going to answer this question correctly, but we have 3-person residential homes, 4-person what's called RSS, residential support services, which means they have overnight awake staff, maybe for a medical need or something like that. And then we have host home as well. So those are, and then ICF. So those are kind of the things.
And
As far as level of
You're
care,
also, you accept everybody, right? No.
yeah, I mean, as everyone else has mentioned, HCS is a zero reject program. I will say we are out in the kind of middle of nowhere, so we have had some people decide that our program was not for them because we're not as close to, say, a hospital or something if they have high medical need. So we might not be able to reject you, but you can reject us if we're not the program for you. So yes, we and then I saw if we have openings. We do not currently have openings, but we do in our private pay, but yeah, I think that was all the questions I saw that came my way.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Casey. All right, Tracy, you're up. Tell us what's going on out there in Deer Park, Texas, which is not too far from where I am in the Houston area. You're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's all
Hi,
right.
my name is Tracy Johnston. I'm with Next Step Transition Center. I'm the owner provider, and I actually started Next Step Transition Center in 2013 after spending about 20 years in high school special education. Transition from high school to the real world is also a big issue right now. There's just a disconnect between schools and what's next, and local authorities, I guess, so to speak. So I have a lot of families, since I had their students for 6 years, since most individuals with IDD can stay in school till they're 22. So I had a lot of individuals for 6 years, and a lot of families just reaching out saying, what are we going to do next? What's next? Where do we go? So that's when I took a big leap of faith and quit my education career and became a Medicaid waiver provider and started Next Step Transition Center. I do provide HCS and Texas home living services, as well as I have a licensed ISS program, which is what replaced rehabilitation. Casey touched on that. So, as I talk, I'm just going to kind of bullet point some things that everybody else mentioned, because the previous 4 presenters did a fabulous job of explaining everything. But most importantly, as parents, if you are not on the waiting list, that's your number one step. And parents out there that have young individuals with IDD or a qualifying disability, you need to start now, because the wait list for these services is very long, and especially it depends on what county you're in. If you live in a really small county, you may come up in 10 years, 8 years. So when the state divides up the slots, of course, the slots are given based on the size of the county. So I wanted to share that. But anyway, the first step is definitely getting on that wait list as soon as possible. And somebody mentioned that you can just Google your local intellectual disability authority to find who your LIDDA is. That's what we call them, LIDDA. That's your local intellectual disability authority. And you'll just want to Google and find out who that is, and then you'll want to call the main number and just let them know that you have an individual with a disability and you would like to get them on the interest list for the waivers. And my recommendation, there are several waivers, not just HCS and Texas Home Living. Somebody else mentioned the class waiver based on the disability. There's also a waiver called DMBD that serves, I believe and please correct me if I'm wrong, serves individuals under the age of 18. So your individual can receive a waiver slot at any age. And with HCS, the parent, one of the things with HCS is if your child receives a waiver slot and they're under the age of 18, the parent cannot provide host home services. So the individual needs to become an adult or has to become an adult before a parent can provide those host home companion care services. And I really talk a lot about the host home companion care because that's the majority of my business. I have 4 group homes, and my services span all the way to Beaumont, Houston, the greater Houston area, and then out towards Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown. I have clients and contracts in those areas as well, and ISS programs in all 3 of those areas. But it's just very important to not wait and to do your research, to ask questions. You know, not only is there a shortage of caregivers, but a lot of the local authorities have constant staff changes and turnover. So, you know, if you don't trust your service coordinator to have all the answers, you should always reach out to potential providers in your area and interview them and vet them and make sure they have the services you need once you get a waiver slot. Sometimes, you know, the service coordinators will hand you a list of thousands and thousands of providers in the state of Texas, and they just say, here, you know, you have to pick a provider. And it can be very, very overwhelming for families. And so, you know, I just encourage you to, you know, to just start looking for the providers in your area, you know, interview a few of them, make a visit to their ISS program, you know, see for yourself what they have to offer. And you know, make yourself a list of questions before you call. It's very important that, you know what you're getting into and you know what the provider has to offer, because you don't want to just pick a provider and need a service like speech or behavior therapy, and the provider says, well, you know, I really don't have anyone that can provide that service, but we'll start looking for someone. You know, if that's a service you need and want, you really need to find a provider that can provide those services from the get-go. And one thing that I did want to mention about, I know we're running short on time, I just want to mention about post-home companion care. as a service that is available with the HCS waiver is the parents become the staff for their individual. It's not a reimbursement from the state. I have a lot of parents, that tell me, well, it's a reimbursement. I should get paid. No, you're a paid contractor, just like maybe your neighbor who's a direct support staff. It's a paid position. So just keep in mind that, if you choose that option, when you get an HCS waiver, that you do have to follow the guidelines set forth for providing care to your individuals and getting paid for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, we do have one more slide just about the private PPAT. I mean, we've been talking about this whole time. PPAT, the Private Providers Association of Texas, and Carol is in charge. So I wanted to show you this slide, but I do want to go over some of the kinds of questions I've been seeing in the chat box and cover a few more things. First of all, yes, you will receive all of these slides. So you're going to have everybody's information. You'll have the link to PPAT, ppat200.com. We talk about things like this every day, and I just want to put this list up as I go over. One of the big questions that I found in the chat box is the eligibility. So when I first got into this area in 2020, into this field, if you will, of serving families with disabilities, I was told that the waiting list was anywhere from 15 to 17 years. Now, 4 short years later, we're being told that we need to say it's going to be 20 to 25 years before you're able to get services. Now, we do full webinars on the HCS waiver, on how to sign up for services, all of that stuff. So feel free to check out some of those. All of our webinars are on our YouTube channel. What I will say is that get on the list. I would even say for people who don't know yet if their child has a disability, get on the list. When your name comes up is when you have to prove eligibility. And that is when they will actually look at your medical records, look at who your doctor is and what your diagnoses are. Sometimes they do check an IQ score. Yeah. It's really best if you have an IQ score under 70, and then maybe under 75 if there are other mitigating circumstances or co-diagnoses, if you will. You don't have to prove that eligibility, though, until 20 years later when your name comes up on that list. Another thing to think about is the crisis diversion spot. We hope that your family would never, ever need a crisis diversion spot. But if your family is in a crisis situation, they will basically bump you to the front of the list for the HCS waiver, and you definitely don't want to miss that if it comes around. So there are crisis diversion hotline numbers for each of the different LIDDAs or local authorities, where you can call that number and explain the crisis situation that you're in. Maybe you are now ill, or your spouse or your parents have moved in with you, or this individual was living with their parents and their parents passed away. Who's going to take care of them now? Maybe they have kind of deteriorated mentally and now they're a threat to themselves or others, or they're threatening to run away. These are all situations that might be able to get you the crisis diversion spot. That is not the time to be brave and put a shiny picture of sunshine and roses. There is a special phone number for the crisis diversion spot. You need to look that up and call that number. And you need to stay on them. You need to be the squeaky wheel and advocate for your child. It's not the time to be brave and act, oh, I've got this, it's no big deal, like you would with nosy neighbors. this is the time to really tell them what is going on with your family. I've been flipping through the slides kind of in the background here, but I do want to point out this is our entire team. We are located in Sugar Land. We serve families all across Texas and all across the United States. So if you have anybody that you know of that might be served by us, we are certainly here to help. We offer a completely free and confidential consultation over Zoom to everybody. And we are going to be reaching out to you to see if you want to go ahead and schedule this consultation. So look back at all these smiling faces. Please be kind. There's no need to be rude to the staff members who are calling to see if you need extra help. You can call our office, you can email our office, you can use the QR code, you can even reach out directly to me. I put my own information in the chat box so that you can reach out to me if you need us. There's also our YouTube channel link, Instagram, our podcast, and our Facebook. And again, these are all clickable in the slides that you're going to receive later on. So let's see, we talked about parents can be paid caregivers after age 18. That is called your own host home situation, right? We talked about eligibility. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to put out there to our panel and ask you guys to discuss. Whoever wants to start off can jump in. We've seen several questions in the chat box regarding paying for these host homes. Does HCS cover 100% of the cost? And if not, what resources can parents use to pay for the additional fees that a host home would incur? Can they use the special needs trust, the ABLE account, regular out-of-pocket bank accounts? And how much might those additional fees be? Can anyone speak to those topics?
So what I've noticed on here is there's and it's very confusing. There are a lot of acronyms, but basically HCS, Texas Home Living, is a fee for service. So host home, we bill a daily rate, and that rate's divided into two things. It's direct care, indirect care. So whoever's doing the host home, family, non-family, whatever the situation is for that individual, they will get from us, and I think most providers pay 100% of that direct care rate to the family per level of need. And that's really where it kind of ends. If there are ancillary things that you have that you need to pay for that don't have anything to do with the waiver specifically, then yeah, you can pay out of pocket. That's not going to affect anything. The issue is, like, if you go, like, there's an ISS in Dallas or in the Collin County that has wonderful services, that they have ISS, and then they have like another program on top of that that is separate and a part of ISS. Well, the family can pay for that out of pocket. They just can't subsidize ISS. I believe that's a Medicaid issue. I don't know if it's fraud, but it's a Medicaid issue. You can't subsidize that. As far as group home, it's the same thing. We get a daily rate based on level of need, and that rate's broken down, and they put in much lower dollar amounts than what we need to do it. But and then the other fee that would come for the family or for that individual is room and board, or some companies call it rent and utilities. So how we do it is there is a formula for it. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's up to 80% of the individual's income from SSI, Social Security, to not go above what the actual cost for that individual to live in there for the room and board. So that's kind of confusing.
I think the point is that people just need to reach out
Yes.
and find several host homes or companies that help hook you up with host homes in your area. talk to them, find out exactly what the additional services that are provided, what the fees are, if they have openings, all of that stuff. And I think that we only have time for maybe just one more question. And I know that this is asking for a unicorn, but does anybody know of any centralized location where you can just go and maybe put in your area and see if there are host homes available? Or is it just, you just have to Google and hope for the best?
I guess I can answer that. I mean, every HCS provider has to provide host home. And you would just have to find a provider, ask them if they have any host home providers looking to provide that service. I mean, we have people that call us on several a week that ask, hey, we would love to do host home. Do you have any individuals? But for us, we vet that quite a bit because we want to make sure that it's nobody's just trying to do, a money grab, so to speak. Yeah, we'll take in 3 people because that's the most you can have in a host home. And there have been it's been in the news. There's been some bad stuff happen in those types of situations. So we're very close. We treat those situations very well.
Thank you so much, everybody, all of the panelists and all of the participants who have been here today. I appreciate you all so much. I hope that if you have any questions, one thing that you can take away from today is that we are all here to help you. Reach out to Consolidated Planning Group. We will answer any questions that we can for you. We want to learn about your family and help you. Please check out our YouTube channel. We have done more in-depth HCS waiver topics. We have done topics about everything under the sun that you might need to know about having an individual in your life with a disability. We are always here for you and always here to help. And like I said, this is truly our passion. So thank you, everybody, for your kind words, for your attention, and for your time today. I hope you have a great week. And please, please, please just let us know if there's anything we can do for you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.